Is anybody there? Is it working now?
Yeah.
It says I'm live.
There we go. Let's do something new.
There's a chat bar too.
There you go.
So this Google Hangouts deal, I gotta shrink this down. And then open this back up to this one. Hey, Brecken. Hey, Gunner. So I'm doing something different today. I am trying this with Google Hangouts, which is different. I've never done this before. So you guys give me some feedback on this when they were watching this tonight. If the video is not very good, then I won't do it this way again. Because it is, I'm using this Google Hangouts, and it uses my webcam on my computer, which isn't as good. What's up, Pond Hopper Nation? It's not as good, so it's my phone. I usually use my phone. I don't know here.
I think it looks good.
It looks all right.
Look at mine.
It looks okay.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing tonight? All right, it looks pretty good, Brecken says. Yeah, my wife said it looks pretty good too. I don't know. I'm just trying some different things here because I'm learning stuff. The cool thing about this is it shows me in the corner of my screen how many viewers I have at the moment, which on the YouTube version, I would have to scroll to the top to find that information out. All right, we'll see if we can get a few more folks in here, and then we'll just talk about fishing rods and reels. Somebody asked me to talk about my fishing rod arsenal for this year. And it's nothing too spectacular, but we'll go through it. And then we can talk about anything that you guys want to talk about. You want to eat a Senko? Okay, hold on. Let me see what I got here. Oh man, I'm dropping rods all over the place. It's a mess. This is gonna work out wonderful. Here's a Senko, Brecken. Right there, tequila sunrise color. Hey Joe, thanks for stopping in, dude. Hey Brecken, are you ready for the ice to melt? Get out and bass fish instead of all this ice fishing business? Hey Jeff, there's Jeff. Jeff's the guy. He said, "Hey, do a live stream with your rods and reels that you use," and that's what we're here to do tonight. I'll try to keep it to an hour. I don't even know if I'll be able to make an hour out of this, but we can talk and have conversations about anybody else's rods and reels that they're using. Yeah, I can't wait to get out and fish open water. Yeah, thanks for the idea, Jeff. I really appreciate it. You've been I guess a good fan since you started watching me a couple weeks ago. So I don't know if you guys are all entered in my giveaway, but I do have that giveaway going on. I need one more subscriber last time I checked to get the number that I need. I set a goal to get 1,100 subscribers to do the giveaway. I think everyone that's on here is already entered. So I'm at 1,000 and well, I was at 1,098, so I'm 2 away. 2 away from getting it. Yes, Gunner, 2. Thanks for correcting my math. All right, so let's get started here. The first thing I want to talk about with fishing rods and reels. Fishing rods and reels can be pretty expensive. We all know this. I've got some fairly expensive reels and a couple of rods that are kind of expensive, but most of the stuff that I have is pretty cheap. And I wouldn't say cheap, but inexpensive, less spendy stuff. You can get some pretty high quality tackle that's not very expensive. Now, I have a little bit of an advantage because I live near Spirit Lake, Iowa. So in Spirit Lake, Iowa, there is a factory for Pure Fishing. Now, Pure Fishing is a company that owns Berkeley, and they own a bunch of other different companies that are fishing related. So they own Abu Garcia, Fluger, Powerbait, Havoc, all these different companies. So I can actually they have an outlet store, and I actually put a link to their store, to their website in the description for this live stream. And I'm not sure if you can buy all the same stuff online as you can when you buy it in the store, but I know you can get a lot of good stuff and good deals. A lot of times they'll have last year's reel or a couple years old reel, but it's a brand new reel in the box, and they're deeply discounted. So the reel from 3 or 4 years ago, you know, most applications is going to work just fine. So I do take advantage of that. Not everything I have is from that store, and I'd like to get some stuff that they don't sell. You know, I like Lose, and they don't typically sell Lose because it's not one of the brands that they own. So, you know, I do go out and buy stuff at Bass Pro Shops and Tackle Warehouse and these other places because I like to try different stuff. I love Abu Garcia rods and reels. I grew up on that stuff. My dad was a diehard Abu Garcia guy. I don't know. He uses whatever now. I think he's got some Daiwa reels, but he used to have everything Abu Garcia, especially on the reel side. And so I kind of grew up on those, and I really like Abu Garcia reels. So I do have a lot of those. The other thing that you can do, hey, traveling fisherman, how's it going? Did you get your reel figured out? I didn't know how to fix it, so I didn't comment on your post on Facebook. But anyways, this outlet store that I live nearby, and like I said, there's a link in the description. I can get fishing rods in there for really cheap. So they'll have something, and I'll show you something here. So I got this rod. And this is a Berkley Emotion rod, which if you haven't used these or haven't seen one, when you next time you see one, you're going to want to check it out because they're pretty interesting rods, and I like them a lot. But this rod is typically $80 or $90, something like that. But I got this rod for $30, and it was a brand new rod. Brand new rod for $30. And the reason was because of this right here. Whoops. Right here. In the end of it, it has like a little flaw or something in the foam. Which doesn't affect the rod at all. It doesn't affect the performance of the rod. It'll work just fine for everything it's intended to do. So I take advantage of that because I have this my wife's coming down because I dropped this fishing rod on the ground. I have this this store nearby that I can get these things really cheap at. So I do take advantage of that. Now, they don't have everything, and they don't always have stuff on sale, but yeah, I definitely take advantage of that. And I strongly encourage you, if you have not heard of this place, and I know some of the guys that live in my area know this, like Brecken Cody, he's in there buying stuff. He's been up there before, and some of the other people that might stop by, they've been to this place, and it's got a lot of good deals. And there may be other places like this around the country. This is the only one that I know of. If anyone knows of anything like that where you can get stuff deeply discounted, outlet store type stuff, leave it in the comments here, because that's a good opportunity if you can spend, save some money on fishing stuff, because let's face it, fishing stuff isn't expensive. So Brecken's on there. He says he likes Abu Garcia and Shimano. I've never owned anything Shimano. I'd like to get some Shimanos, but man, they are expensive. You can get some of their lower end stuff for pretty reasonable price. But okay, so Jeff is asking about. He says he's about to place an order for a worm rod. Needs suggestions. He says 7-foot medium action. Okay, so I would go if I'm going to get a worm rod. Okay, so are you talking finesse worms, like spinning reel? Or are you talking like Texas rig, Carolina rig worms, which I think that's what you're talking about. And if I'm going to do that, I would go for something that's a little heavier than medium. Medium to me is a little bit light for using for worms. You like to have that little bit more backbone for the hook set. I fished a medium action rod for, what's up, Oakley Outdoors? Muskie Hans is here. Yeah, Ned rig, Texas rig. I would go with something a little bit heavier. You want to be able to get that good hook set, so you get it through the worm. I would definitely go with a medium heavy. You could even go to a heavy. The fast action tip is definitely good, because then you can got a little bit more sensitivity. I'll show you what I use for a worm rod. And my wife uses this rod too. Actually, when I bought this rod, I told her it was for her. So anyways, this is and I'm not going to be able to get this in the picture here very good, but this is a Abu Garcia Veritas, and this is a 7'6" medium heavy. It doesn't have a fast action tip. I wanted to get a fast action tip, and I accidentally grabbed the wrong rod. So I got it with just a regular tip. And it actually works really good. It's a good, strong rod. It casts really well. And it's got a real solid backbone. And it's what do you want to say, sensitive enough that you can feel the bites on it. Okay, so Jeff says he also uses Daiwa Patula reels and Lose reels. Black Max is a beater reel. Yeah, Black Max is a great all-around reel. I have a bunch of those. My kids all have Black Max reels and Silver Max because they work really good. The other thing is I can get a Black Max reel. I can actually get a refurbished one for $15. $15 at this store that I go to. And yeah, they have really good deals. You can get a new one for really pretty inexpensive too. Let's see, what else do we got on here? Have I ever used Revos or Revo S? Okay, so I have a Revo S, but it's a musky reel. It's a giant reel. I don't know how. Oh no, it's a Toro. It's a Revo Toro S. And I have another Revo. It's the older style model. It's a little bit wider. But they're big musky reels. They're not for bass fishing. I'd love to get some Revos, and I can actually get some Revos for a pretty good price at this store. I just haven't pulled the trigger on them yet. Berkeley Outlet isn't a big bass fishing store. It has stuff for fishing the local lakes and like Okoboji, Spirit, etc. They have some bass fishing stuff, but a lot of walleye and panfish, etc. That is definitely true, Brecken. They're more of a walleye store, but the rods and reels, they're good for anything. Hey, Crappie Killer, thanks for stopping by. But yeah, I mean they have tons of rods and reels. I mean that's mostly what I get there, and I get a lot of soft plastic baits from that store because you can get them really, really cheap on there. They're pretty inexpensive. So, okay, I'll run through my rods real quick and kind of what I use them for. The other thing that I started doing last year was kayak fishing. So when you're kayak fishing, you're on a kayak and you got a good chance. I mean, I haven't fallen in yet, but there's a chance that you're going to dump that kayak and put your stuff in the water. So I don't really want to put my $150 lose reel in the lake when I dump my kayak over. So now that being said, I've taken my high-end reels. Well, my high-end reels. They're not that high-end, but I've taken them out on my kayak. And I haven't fallen in yet. My son, he says he almost did. But it's something to think about when you're kayak fishing. And Jeff brings up a good point. He has a Black Max. He calls it his beater reel. Well, a Black Max is going to catch a fish as good as anything else. They work great. And if you're going out on the kayak and you're worried about dumping your reel or dropping it or something, take something that's not that fancy, not that expensive. Get a Black Max or a cheaper lower end reel. That way when you dump it in the water, it's not a big deal. Yeah, I'd love to catch a muskie in a kayak. I've seen some people do it. It would be amazing. Brecken says I should try a $25 Walmart challenge. Do you guys like these challenge videos on YouTube? I definitely want to do that, Brecken. I was also going to do like an ice fishing challenge where I take my ice fishing rods bass fishing. And then like a Snoopy pole rod, little kid pole. I was going to do that. Lots of guys do that, but it still looks like fun. So I'm definitely going to do that. Crappie Killer says right now is time to buy gear when everyone is doing their end of year, beginning of year fire sales. That is true. In fact, I know that right now on eBay, you can get loose reels that are deeply discounted. Like the reel that I have a loose Tournament MB. It was on that rod I just showed you. And that's like $140 reel. And right now you can get those anywhere from 90 to like $105 on eBay, depending on the gear ratio. So the really fast one, the 8.3 model, they must not sell very many of them or whatever, but that's marked down all the way to $90. And then the more common gear ratios like 6.3, 7.75, those are like $105. So that's a pretty good deal. Thanks for sharing that, Crappie Killer. That's definitely true. What's my biggest muskie? I caught a 44-incher in Wisconsin 2 Octobers ago. Yeah, I'll do that, Brecken. I'm going to do some of those crazy videos like that. I'm going to do a video where I fish with wacky rigged stuff. Not wacky worms. Just whatever I can find that I think will catch a fish that I can wacky rig. That should be fun. Like some yarn or whatever. So I'll just go through kind of what I use for rods and reels really quick and let you guys ask any questions, or if you want to pipe in and talk about what you use, that's great. Now, I have a bunch of reels here that I'm going to show you, a bunch of rods and reels that I'm going to show you guys. I fish from the shore or a kayak 99% of the time. So typically I only have 2 or 3 reels or 2 or 3 rods with me. But my wife goes fishing with me all the time. She's my best fishing friend. And so some of these reels and rods, they're stuff that she uses or that my kids use. And I have a bunch more than this. I didn't bring everything that I have into the house, but these are going to be the ones that I'm going to use most often. These are kind of my go-tos. I have a lot of other stuff that I bought throughout the years, and then I've either upgraded or replaced it with stuff that I wanted to do that was a little better. A roulette challenge. Yeah, I want to do that too with some crazy different baits. Okay, so Jeff asked me what's my preferred length in rods. Well, I do like 7-foot rods mostly. Anything bigger than 7 foot, it gets a little tough to store, and without a boat, or I'm not fishing on a boat, so first of all, if you're on a kayak, a 7-foot 6-inch rod is way too big. So you know, you really don't want anything bigger than 7 foot. Even if you want like you know, 6 foot something, 6'5", 6'9", whatever. Those are good rods for using on a kayak. I typically, though, with a bait casting rod, I like a rod that's 7 foot. And if you really want to have like an all-around setup, you can easily fish pretty much any type of bass fishing you want with a 7-foot medium heavy rod and a 6.3 or 6.4 to 1 bait caster. You can do anything. Pretty much any kind of bass fishing there is, you can do with that stuff. Obviously, there's all kinds of different rods and gear ratios and specialized things that you can use. And that stuff is great too. But if you just want to have a rod to use, you get a 7-foot medium heavy rod and you get a 6.3 to 1 or 6.4 to 1 bait caster. You can do anything out there. Anything out there. Let's see. I got a couple questions here. People are dropping a lot of questions on me. I can't keep up. Tips for bed fishing? I don't know. I'll come back to that, Brecken, after a little while. Crappie Killer says his wife is his worst fishing friend. Why is that? That doesn't make any sense. My wife is my best friend, and she likes to fish. Therefore, she's my best fishing friend. And she's pretty good at it, too. There you go. Crappie Killer's got some tips for you there, Brecken. Okay, so 7 foot. Yeah, that's my favorite. Now, I have different ones. Like this is a 7.3. And I like, or 7.6. I'm sure. Sorry, I like. Hey, we got somebody from Italy on here. Hey, what is up, Luca Franchi? And you guys fish for bass in Italy. That's awesome. Someday I'm going to go and catch a bass in Italy. Thanks for stopping, by the way. I can't believe that. That's crazy. Okay, so this rod is 7 foot 6 inches and it's medium heavy. And I like this for worm fishing. Like I said, I wanted to have a fast tip on it, a fast action tip. But I picked up the wrong rod when I bought it. And this Berkeley Veritas rod, or I'm sorry, not Berkeley, Abu Garcia Veritas rod is it's a kind of middle of the road rod. I mean, I think it was like around $100, which is kind of expensive for me. You know, typically I'm buying rods that are 30, 40 bucks. Sometimes I have some rods here that I'm going to show you that cost me $8. But they still all catch fish. So on this rod, I have my 7.3 or 7.5 to 1 Lew's Tournament MB speed spool, which is an awesome rod or reel. I can use this for you know, any type of fishing, but I do prefer that's the kind of the reel I prefer for worm fishing. I like a faster one so I can pick up the slack line a little quicker. And I like a good heavy rod so that when I'm setting the hook, I can get the hook through the fish. So when you're fishing with a worm, you've got to be able to, the fish is going to take that worm into his mouth and he's going to ball it up. So now if you have a 6 or 8 inch worm, that fish has got it in his mouth in a ball, and you've got to set the hook and pull the hook through that worm and then hook it into the bass. So you got to have something with some good backbone. That's why I would steer away from the medium action rod for worm fishing. I'd stick with a medium heavy or even a heavy, but if you're going to go with the heavy, make sure it does have a fast tip, because otherwise it'll be not very sensitive and, you know, not work that great. Now, a lot of people use more medium action rods. I like the medium heavy, and that's what I've always kind of stuck to. So that's kind of my worm fishing setup, and my wife does use that rod sometimes as well. We've got, if I don't break it, we've got some videos of her actually catching bass on this rod. Our very first couple videos, actually, that we did. Okay, so while we're on the subject of worm fishing, I'm going to talk about my finesse worm fishing setup. And this is something that's kind of new to me. I never really fished. I was always a power fisherman, crankbaits, spinnerbaits, big moving baits, or big rubber worms. I never really did much finesse fishing, but that's something I got into in the last 2 years, and I've just absolutely loved it. It's been a lot of fun, and I've done really well. I can tell you right now, if I had one bait to go catch a fish with, it would be a wacky rig trick worm or a Senko. And that's what I would choose because it would be my highest percentage, my best chance of catching a fish in my experience. Okay, so I'm going to read back through a few comments. Do I know who the Guggen Squad is? Yes, I know who the Guggen Squad is. I don't know them personally, but I know who they are. Crappie Killer says he picked up 2 10-inch crappie rods. 10-inch crappie rods? Or 10-foot crappie rods? What are you going to do with a 10-inch crappie rod? $14. That's pretty cheap, though. Muskie Hans says he likes ultralight rods for bass. Yeah, I don't really have any ultralight rods other than my ice fishing rods. I want to get some. Ultralight rods, though. Okay, so Jeff has a question about what size line, and then fluorocarbon or mono. Okay, so for worm fishing, I guess it depends. The rage these days, I guess, is fluorocarbon, and fluorocarbon is pretty strong, but it's not a super line, and it is invisible. So when it's under the water, the fish cannot see it. It's invisible, and so for that reason, a lot of people like to fish it. Now, I do fish with fluorocarbon line, and I do like it. It does have some different kind of properties. It doesn't really act like monofilament line, and it certainly isn't braid. And it acts a little differently. Kind of has a little bit more aggressive memory to it, but it has less stretch than monofilament line. I definitely like it more than monofilament for fishing like Texas rig stuff or whatever. And if you're doing kind of heavy duty fishing, you definitely want to have something that's 17 pounds or higher. But if you're fishing in dirty water a lot, it doesn't really matter if the line's invisible or not. So then if you're fishing in that dirty water a lot, you can switch to braid. Now, the thing with braid is braid likes to float. It kind of floats on top of the water sometimes because it's, it can have air trapped inside of it or whatever because it's a braided line. So a lot of guys don't like the braid for worm fishing for that reason. Now, I use it sometimes. I use mono sometimes. I use fluorocarbon sometimes. So just kind of whatever. I'm not so specialized that I'll say don't use braid for worm fishing because of X, Y, and Z. I would say if you're comfortable with braid, use it. The thing I like about braid is when I set the hook, the fish is going to be hooked. If I set the hook with mono or fluoro, I may not get a good enough hook set. The second thing is I've lost some big fish because my line broke. Now that, there's multiple reasons why line breaks, right? Your line breaks because you caught a bunch of fish and you didn't retie, or you did like me and you reeled the fish too close to the shore, and then the fish jumps out of the water, which is a 5-pound bass, and then he breaks the line because he's got nowhere else to go. So I don't know. I mean, I said a lot there, and I don't know if that answers your question, Jeff, but I would go with the line that you like. I think, for the price, I like braided line. And if you go with braided line, I mean, you can go with whatever size you want because the line's not going to be that thick. You can go with 50-pound or 30-pound, 40-pound braid, and it's still a normal sized line. So I don't know if that answered your question at all. If you have any other questions on that, throw them on there. If you have 3 rods to bait casters, 1 spinning, finesse, and you could choose 3 baits to go out in any conditions and catch bass during the summer, what would those 3 baits be? That's a big question. I would use the Senko for sure, And I would use probably a crankbait and a spinnerbait or a chatterbait. All right, so Muskie Han says, I have a 10-inch rod I bought for ice fishing. I don't intentionally fish for bass a ton. Well, you should, Muskie Hans. It's amazing. Muskie Hans goes after the big toothy fish. Yeah, I thought you meant 10-foot rods. I've never fished with a 10-foot rod. I know some of them crappie rods are really big. All right. Hey, DB Green Outdoors. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, so there's a really good point DB Green brings up. If you're going to fish with braid and you want to have that invisibility or that area where you're not floating that braided line, you can actually tie a leader onto your braided line. And I do that. I've done that in the past. I like to especially do that on spinning reels where I'm using braided line. And then I can have a 6 or 8 foot leader of mono or fluorocarbon. And so I still have a very good hook set because most of the line that I have out is that no zero stretch super line. And then the last little bit of it can stretch a little bit. And then that's what the fish sees, the last little bit. The last, 2-3 feet of line is what the fish is seeing. So you can do that and kind of cheat a little bit. It does work really good. I've used that a lot. In fact, I have a video on how to tie the Albright knot. I think it's called the Albright knot, which is a knot where you can tie a line to another line. It works really good. And it's super easy. So thanks for bringing that up. He says he uses a uni knot. And let's see. 12-pound fluoro for worm fishing. To me, that's a little bit light for me. I would go like 17 or 15-pound fluorocarbon for that. And I have a reel here that I had some fluorocarbon on that I used, but it was a cranking reel. I used it for cranking. Okay, so one more question from Brecken, and I'm going to talk about my finesse combo here. So Brecken said, what was the best day of fishing you have ever had and why? Well, it's hard to say. I did have a day where I was muskie fishing in Wisconsin, and I caught 2 muskies in 15 minutes. And I've caught a lot of bass. I've had some really good bass fishing days in my life, but I caught 2 fish, and together they totaled like 84 inches in 15 minutes. So that was pretty amazing. That was pretty amazing. Luca from Italy. That is so cool. He says spring is near. What is your favorite baits in the spring? Your English is good, but don't worry about it. So my favorite baits for the spring, I like to use, I like to finesse fish with worms. So I like to use the wacky rig. That's something I really started doing a whole bunch of last year, especially right before the fish start to spawn, when the water's like almost 60 degrees and the fish are kind of getting ready to spawn. I mean, I've had days where I've caught just dozens and dozens of small bass, male bass. They're not very big, but you just catch tons of them that way, which is a lot of fun. Otherwise, spring baits, I do like rattle traps are really good. Crankbaits, square bill crankbaits, I like those a lot. And spinner baits, depending on the water clarity, I either go with a spinner bait or a chatterbait. Okay, so real quick here, we'll talk about what I like to use for my finesse fishing. So like my wacky rig, or I would use this for like a shaky head or Nico rig, anything like that. Or, I don't really have a lot of panfish rods. So if I'm going out trying to catch a crappie or something, this is the rod I'm going to use. So this is a Berkley Emotion, and I talked about these earlier. I got these rods last year, and I really like them. This is a medium fast. So it's medium action, and it's got a fast tip. So if you guys don't know, the fast tip just means that the action of the tip of the rod is more it's lighter than the rest of the rod. So like the tip is like the last 10 or 20% of the rod. Then it transitions to the medium heavy or the medium portion of the rod. So you have this out here, which is a little bit lighter, and then you have the rest of the rod, which is quite a bit heavier backbone. And so you can really feel bites on this rod, but then you have the backbone to fight the fish or whatever. And I always, you know, I don't like really light rods. I like some of the heavier rods. And so this works really good for me with the fast tip. I like that a lot. So like I said, this is a Berkeley Emotion rod. And I don't know how long they've been making these rods, but I got 2 of them last year, and my brother actually got a couple of them, and we have been super impressed. They have micro guides on them, so they have really small guides. And if you guys don't know about micro guides, I don't know why or how. You can see it's pretty small, but they cast better. I don't know why exactly. I'm sure if I did some reading, I could find out, but they cast super good. And I have this paired up with a Lew's Mach 2 speed spin reel, and I really like this reel because it's a little bit faster than your typical spinning reel. This is a 6.2, I think. Let's see here. 6.2 to 1. So most of my spinning reels are 5.1, 5.2 to 1. They're a little bit slower. So I bought this specifically so I'd have one that was a little faster. I really like Pflueger spinning reels too. I have some. I didn't bring any in here to show you guys because I actually need to get some rods, because I used to run a Pflueger Purist. No, not a Purist. I can't remember what it was, but it's a 10 bearing Pflueger, really nice spinning reel, and I got it pretty reasonably priced, but it worked really, really good. But I switched it out with this, and I haven't bought a new rod for it yet. But this is an excellent, excellent setup. I caught so many fish on this with a wacky rig worm. It just works amazing. And I like to use monofilament line on this. So this is just Berkeley XL, and it's 8-pound monofilament, and it works great. Now, that rod new is $80, and that reel is $80. So together, that's a $160 combo. So I'm going to show you what my wife uses, and she typically outfishes me. So this combo costs more like $40, and it does just as good. Does just as good a job. So this is a Abu Garcia Cardinal Z fishing rod, and it is what is it? It's a 6'6" medium, and it's just a spinning rod. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's a medium action, but it's pretty supple on the end, so it's got a good, you know, you can feel bites with it really good. And we got that paired up with an Abu Garcia Cardinal reel, and this is not a fancy reel. This is like 5 bearings, nothing too special about it. And I think you can buy these new for like $39. And we bought this one actually remanufactured. We bought it for $15. So we bought this rod for $8 because we bought it at the outlet store, and we bought this reel for $15. So by the time you put line on it, which was the same line, we've got 8-pound monofilament line on it, Berkeley XL. And I mean, $25, $30, and it does an excellent job. Does great. All right, let's go back and see here what we got. Luke and Crappie Killer talking about catch a crappie. No crappie in Italy. Are Yamamoto Senkos worth the price, or can I use the Yum Digger and get the same result? Okay, so this is a good question. I've caught very little fish on Yamamoto Senkos because I don't buy them. They're really expensive, but they do work excellent. The ones I've used, they always worked really well. And Luca is correct. They do have a little bit different action to them. They're a little bit softer, in my experience, which is another reason that maybe people don't like them, is because they don't last as long. If you get a Strike King shimmy stick, you can catch a whole bunch of fish on that before you tear that worm up too bad to fish with. Whereas with the Yamamoto Senko, you might catch, you might have a better hookup ratio or something like that, but I think that they don't last near as long. But I do like them. But you can get a pack of Yamamotos for like $7. You can get a pack of Strike Kings or the Yum Dingers that you're talking about, Brecken. You can get those for like $3, $2 or $3. So, that's pretty good compared to the cost of the other ones, which can be pretty spendy. All right, so let's look at a few more rods here. I don't remember if I talked about this one already. I don't think I did. So I got this Berkley Emotion rod, and this is a little bit shorter. It's 6'9", and it's medium heavy, or no, 6'7". It's medium heavy fast, and I like to use this. I actually got this so I could fish. I wanted to try fishing topwater with this, and you might think, well, this is kind of an odd reel, or kind of an odd size rod to fish topwater with. And I'd say if you're fishing from a boat, you'd be right, but if you're fishing from the shore, I feel like a little bit shorter rod works better for topwater, and it helps me to be able to work the bait a little better. And I find if I have a 7-foot or even longer rod, I never would go longer for topwaters. I'd keep it at 7 foot or less. I find that I end up smacking the water with the rod, especially when I'm shore fishing, because I'm working the bait, and I'm close to the water, and I hit the water with my rod. Now, it's not a big deal if I do that, but I think it just gives me a little bit more room to do what I'm trying to do. Hey, Caleb. Glad you stopped by. Me and Caleb are going to go fishing this Saturday. Hopefully we'll catch some walleyes. Okay, so on this rod, and I like to use this for topwater, but this would be a really versatile rod. When I go kayak fishing, I always take this rod and this reel, and I'll just tie on whatever I want to fish with, because it works for whatever. But I did buy it specifically kind of for topwaters. I wanted to try it out. Now, it has a fast action tip, which doesn't always work the best with topwater, but it does work. It does work well because it's a medium heavy, so only the very tip of it is softer. And I've caught a lot of big fish on this with topwater frogs and stuff like that, and really not had any issue. Now, the reel that I have on here, this is a Fluger Monarch. And this is not a very expensive reel. This is like a $49 reel. It's nothing fancy. 5 bearings. It's got a little magnetic brake on it. But that's about it. I mean, there's nothing too fancy about it. It's a 7.3 to 1 gear ratio, and I like that for topwater baits, because with topwater baits, I like a little faster gear ratio, because you're kind of working with slack line a lot, and I like to be able to pick up that slack line quickly. If I need to, if I have a fish bite or something like that. I really like the fact that this rod has a little bit shorter butt on it, because when you're fishing with topwaters, you're constantly moving the rod around, whether you're fishing with a frog or like a Zara spook or a walking bait or a popper or anything like that. You're moving that rod around, and if you have a longer rod butt on there, it doesn't work as well, in my opinion. I really like this rod, and actually, I probably am going to see if I can find some more of these this year, in a little bit different sizes and actions or whatever. But yeah, they're good rods. If you guys want to check out these Berkeley Emotion rods, and they look good, so they're kind of like a matte black color, and they have white on the guide ties, but they look really good. I really like this setup. It's one of my favorite ones to fish with. All right, let's see. So So Lucas says the biggest bass in Italy at most is 8 pounds. Is there a record? Is that what they got? What's up for the kids fishing? How's it going? Yeah, what's the country record for Italy's bass, Luca? That would be cool to know. Yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit tougher to get the bass fishing stuff, but I know there's some bass fishing stuff in Italy. Like I got a Molix spinnerbait that is from Italy. Now it was expensive here, so I don't know how expensive. Maybe it'll be cheap there. Oh man, I would never trade a 15-pound bass for a Xander. A Xander is just a walleye. All right, for the kids, he says, "Hey Midwest, have I ever shouted you out in our videos yet?" Yes, you have, and I thank you for doing that. That was awesome. This for the kids fishing, he's got a YouTube channel, and he does a lot of stuff with other YouTube channels. So definitely check him out. Crappie Killer's got a channel too if you haven't seen his. What's up, PGH? How was the catfish conference? Yeah, you did. You did shout me out. Hey, you can shout me out again if you want. All right, let's talk about a couple more rods and reels here. Let's see. Here's another one that I got. Another one that I got for fishing on the kayak, and I actually kind of bought this one for my wife too. But this is a Abu Garcia Vendetta rod, and it's a 6'6" medium heavy. Which, when you're on a kayak, a little bit shorter rod, I think it works pretty good. And then this is probably my second most high end reel. I mean, this is a it's like a, I don't know. I think this thing costs like $100, which isn't too expensive. I mean, there's reels out there way more expensive than that. But like I said, I can get most of these reels at a pretty decent discount. But this is a pretty high-end reel for me. It's a Fluger Supreme. It's a 9-bearing reel, 7.1 to 1 gear ratio. It's a pretty good all-around reel. You can use it for whatever. My wife likes fishing with Braid, so we have it spooled up with 30-pound Power Pro Braid, and she pretty much uses it for whatever. And I've fished with it a couple times. It's a good reel, and it's a really good reel, and it's a nice rod. Any of you guys kayak fish? If you do, what size rods do you like to use? And I don't know how many folks we got left on here right now, but well, I bought a kayak last year, so I'm probably not an expert on it. Caleb says he's thinking about buying a kayak. I absolutely recommend that you do buy one because they're just unbelievable fun. I cannot believe that I waited so long in my life to buy one. But what do I recommend? Well, I bought a 10-foot Pelican kayak. It was cheap, cost about $300. And it worked well for me. Now, I'm kind of a bigger guy. I weigh over 200 pounds. And so it was kind of, it's maybe not the best kayak for me. I'm definitely going to upgrade to something bigger and something that's a sit on top seat. I would definitely recommend a sit on top seat. Now, if you want to go, if you don't want to spend a bunch of money and you just want to get one, definitely. I have a Pelican. It's called a Pelican Ultimate 100 Angler. It's 10 foot long. It's got a couple of rod holders. There's spot in the back there. You can throw your what do you call it? Milk crate back there with some baits or whatever, some tackle boxes in it. It's got it's a sit on top, so you don't sit inside of it. So you're just kind of exposed. I like those better because you can lay your stuff wherever on top of you. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple and easy, and it works really good. If you want to, Caleb, if you want to see, there's a couple videos where I'm fishing my kayak. Otherwise, we'll have to get together this summer or spring and go out in them. But I definitely would recommend buying them. Now, I've been looking at a bigger one, maybe like a 12-footer, 11 and a half, 12-footer that's a sit on top. I'm going to try and maybe get something like that this year. I don't know if I'll be able to swing that, but I'm going to try. And I'll just pass my 10-footer down to one of my kids. But I'd say, you know, definitely I would get a kayak. They're super awesome. I just absolutely love them. So Lucas says he hates Xanders because Xanders eat bass. They just need to get the bass bigger over there in Italy. Yeah, they are overgrown walleyes. That's pretty cool. We got somebody from Italy on here. I can't believe that. So, does anyone have any more questions about rods and reels? I can go through a few more, but I guess I got one more I'll talk about. This is the rod and reel that I like to use for crankbait fishing or moving bait, swim baits, anything like that. It's not too aggressive, like it's not too heavy duty to pull. I got a Lew's speed spool, Lew's laser speed spool, and I bought this reel rebuilt for 36 bucks. So, you know, I think new they're like 70 or 80 bucks, and I got one pretty cheap. But this is a pretty nice rod. This is a Fenwick Iron Hawk, and 7-foot medium heavy fast. And a lot of guys and fishermen, they like to use a medium action rod when they're crankbait fishing or spinnerbait fishing, and that works really well. If you have a rod that has some more give in it, there's a better chance you're not going to pull that bait out of the fish's mouth, and a really good chance that the fish will kind of set the hook on itself. Just the action of the rod will set the hook. I still like a medium heavy rod, and I like to have a fast action tip on it. So I still have that little bit of extra give on the tip, but I still have that backbone. And the reason I like that is because I like to throw heavier lures, and I just don't feel comfortable throwing those bigger lures on a medium action rod. It flexes so much, and I've just never been able to be okay with that. So I always run a medium heavy for the most part. Okay, so let's see. Luca says the problem in their part is that the poaching and the elderly who eat the bass for every Italian bass man would be a dream to live there. Yeah, to live in the United States. Yeah, it drives me crazy when people eat bass. I think Crappie Killer eats some bass. Don't you, Crappie Killer? I can't stand it when people eat bass. But hey, it's free country. Do what you want. If you catch a bass, you want to eat it, as long as it's legal. It's legal size, and eat it. So, Luca, you said you got 8-pound bass at max where you live. Well, I live in Iowa, and we don't get much bigger than that on our bass either. Our state record is 10 pounds, so we're right there with you. Now, Crappie Killer, he lives in North Carolina, and they got huge bass down there, probably 15-pounders, I suppose. Okay, so Crappie Killer says, what do you use to clean yours? I usually use alcohol pads, but I don't even know if that's safe. Now, are you talking the rod or the reel, Crappie Killer? Help me out. I don't know what you're talking about there. Crappie Killer says he eats small bass, 1 to 2 pounders. Yeah, people catch the huge ones and eat them. They can't taste good either. I can't imagine. Okay, Crappie Killer. So if you're talking about cleaning a fishing rod, I typically just use a washcloth and warm water. I don't use alcohol pad or anything like that. I don't think there's any need to. Just use, usually on the rod, you're just going to have kind of dirt, grime, whatever. It's not going to be a big deal. Just use, warm water and soap and a washcloth. That works pretty good for me. If it's really grimy, you can get an old toothbrush out or something and scrub on it, but not that big a deal. Okay, so the reel. When I clean a reel, I typically just use, I'll clean the body of the reel or the frame, whatever you want to call it, with just a washcloth or whatever. And then I like to just wipe the stuff down with a cloth. I don't use any particular cleaner or anything like that. I don't like to introduce any kind of cleaner, because if you get the cleaner in there, that could break down the grease and oils that you use to lubricate the reel. So what I do, I'll just clean it up real good and then I'll lubricate it. So the oil and the grease that's on there, you can just wipe it off with a clean rag. I like to use something that doesn't produce lint. I don't use like Q-tips, because the little cotton part fibers can come out. And actually, if you get those fibers in your bearings, it can actually ruin the bearings. I mean, it's probably not going to ruin them in a fishing reel, but it definitely will be hard on them and cause the bearings to maybe fail prematurely. So yeah, and my son here, Gunnar Lindahl, he says we have a video on that. So we do have a video on cleaning reels. It's one of the earlier videos we did, but it's the same way I clean reels now, and it works really good. So if you want to check that out, that'll show you how to do it. But yeah, we just wipe everything down with a clean rag and then re-lubricate, and we're good to go. A lot of guys use, like I said, they use Q-tips and stuff, and I don't do that because there's a couple spots where I'll use a Q-tip, but anywhere near the bearing or on the internals, I stay away from that. Crappie Killer says he only kept 3 bass last year because he had so many crappies to eat. That's good. Oh, man. People are selling bass to local shops. I suppose you get some money out of that. Yeah, Gunner. That's my boy. His name is Gunner. It's an old Swedish name. We actually spelled it a little bit wrong. Justina Albright. She is asking, what is my favorite fishing spots in the Des Moines area? Well, I'm not from the Des Moines area, but I have done some fishing down there. I've had some good luck at what's it called, Big Creek, but now Big Creek has kind of been taken over with shad. There's so many shad in Big Creek. Yeah, it's crazy. I've heard of people ice fishing at Big Creek and actually have shad like jumping out of the hole. So I don't know. I haven't been there since last summer, but I caught some really good bass out of there last summer. Other than that, I haven't done a lot of fishing down there. I did some fishing in some farm ponds, private farm ponds, did really well. Obviously, usually private ponds are going to be pretty good. But other than that, I haven't done a whole lot down there, Justina. Crappie Killer is the king of crappie and white perch. Okay, so we don't have white perch where I live. I never seen a white perch until I seen them on Crappie Killer's videos. Yeah, you can't sell fish. Giving them away to people at work to fry and bring to work. It's actually illegal to give away fish to somebody who doesn't have a license in the state that I live in. Brecken's eating ice cream and Oreos. I need some ice cream. Would be nice to be able to. Yeah, Saylorville. Joe Granat says Saylorville is a good place to fish near Des Moines, Iowa. I've never really fished Saylorville. It's a pretty big lake, and I don't know. I need a boat. I think if I had a boat, I'd be fishing it, but. Okay, so Crappie Killer has a question. He wants to know, have I ever met any subscribers in person? So I actually met Breck and Cody in person, who's on this live stream right now, but he was not a subscriber when I met him. I met him and talked to him, and he asked me if I had a YouTube channel because I was fishing with a camera on. And I told him yes, and he went back and subscribed. So I have met him. Now, obviously, some of my subscribers are friends of mine and that I fish with. So, yes. But that's the only one. There was another guy that recognized me because his friend had shown him one of my videos, but he wasn't a subscriber. I told him to subscribe, and I don't know if he did. Good night, Luca. Thank you so much for stopping by. That's awesome that you stopped by from Italy. That's cool. West Des Moines Public Library Pond was a go-to place to fish when he was in elementary school. I never fished there. Walleye weekend. I might fish walleye weekend this year. I'm going to see if my buddy wants to do it. Last year, so where we live in Iowa, they have this chain of lakes called the Iowa Great Lakes. And they're really good fishing, and they pride themselves on the walleye fishing there. And every year they tag one walleye, or like 5 walleye or something. I don't know how many they tag. If you catch that fish, you get $35,000 in that weekend. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Somebody caught it last year off of a dock with a bobber. It was like a 10-inch walleye or something. Yeah, we'll see, Brecken. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fish that or not. So Crappie Killer met one of his subs from the very beginning last week, and he's been sub since I started. Laugh out loud, no idea, no idea how, but that's crazy to me. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I don't, I've got 1,000, almost 1,100 subscribers, and I've not met too many of them. Hey, by the way, if you guys aren't subscribed, and I think you all are, but if you're not, if anybody on here is not, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And check out the giveaway. We're doing a giveaway. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by. I really enjoy doing these, and I'm going to keep doing these as long as you guys keep showing up. So thanks a lot. And like I said, if you haven't already, make sure you enter my giveaway. I'm going to probably be picking the winners here tomorrow. All I need is 1 or 2 subscribers to meet the goal. And we've got 7 prizes. 3 of them are fishing reels. One of them is a whole bait crate subscription box. And then I've got a bunch of other baits that I'm giving away. So if you guys aren't entered in that, make sure you do so. And if you know anybody else that wants to check it out, then what do you call it? Share that with them and let them know, because there's a lot of cool stuff there. So yeah, and yeah, turn on your post notifications, like Brecken says. All right, guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by, guys and gals, I should say. So thanks for stopping, and we'll see you next week sometime.